practice. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's so much sectarian right now, rife here in the UK. Let me take you back to 2015, 2016. During the murder of Asad Shah, Muslims came together to condemn the murder.
He was the Ahmadiyya shopkeeper in Glasgow.
The Ahmadiyya shopkeeper in Glasgow, who was murdered by a Sunni who ascribed to the Sufi Barelvi school of thought. And he was encouraged by Mumtaz Qadri in Pakistan, who had also encouraged the murder of Salman Taseer. When that murder took place, whilst we had Muslims condemning the murder, we had MCB releasing a statement saying, well, okay, Ahmadiyyas, you know, okay, they've been murdered, it's bad, but they're not Muslims. And we should be allowed to feel free to say they're not Muslims.
Are they Muslims?
Of course they are, because they declare the same Shahada. Islamically, if somebody declares themselves as a Muslim, you are meant to accept them as a Muslim. We don't see that happening here. There's this ongoing argument about whether Ahmadiyya
are they Muslims?
Sorry?
Ahmadiyya, are they Muslims?
Well, I think if you were to read the writings of the founder of the Ahmadiyya, Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, he'd say that people who didn't accept him are not Muslims, including us. Yeah. And the reason being,
okay,
if I may clarify, the Ahmadiyya to Islam is like the Mormons to Christianity. They believe in a new prophet, and we all know that when there's a new it's a new prophet. Actually, if you believe what they say,
blessings of Allah be upon him, himself said.
Isn't that a point, though, because you believe in a new prophet, and we'll get exactly what you do believe, Khalil, but isn't it his point that it is like the Mormons or indeed Jehovah's Witnesses who do not accept the Trinity? Joseph Smith came along for the Mormons, a brand new prophet. A lot of the Christians would say that they're not Christian. So,
and the Baha'is have a new prophet as well.
All right.
All Muslims. At the same time of Mirza Ghulam Ahmed.
All right, but you describe yourself as the fastest growing revival movement within Islam. Islam.
All Muslims believe in a Messiah to come. We believe in His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, and other Muslims believe that Jesus, peace be upon him, will come. Jesus was also a prophet. So I'd like to understand how they distinguish between Jesus and our promised Messiah in the context of prophethood.
Now, Hannah mentioned the terrible case of the shopkeeper in Glasgow being murdered, and this actually focuses on some of the antipathy and hostility towards your community, towards your shade of faith, because the MPAC, which is the Muslim Public Affairs Committee, is quite high profile in this country. They tweeted when they first heard about the murder motivated by Islamophobia. Hardly any coverage. When it was uncovered that he was Ahmadiyya, they deleted that tweet.
Which is most unfortunate. And the lady over here made a very important point about, you know, the fundamental teachings of Islam and the fact that Islam as a religion is in fact united. And so on the basis of that, if I were to refer you to the Charter of Medina at the time of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, he managed to live with other religions very peacefully. And so if Islam is saying that you should be able to live with other religions peacefully, how is it that Muslims among themselves cannot live peacefully? That's a question that we all need to ask.
And I think this goes to
Ahmadiyya.
Yes, this goes to the heart of the discussion. Throughout the history of Islam, we've had pluralism, we've had diversity. That's simply a fact. And it's about the way Muslims choose to interpret that. And it's about what the consequences then are for people who choose to practice their faith in the way they wish to. So with the Ahmadiyya, for example, my family from Pakistan, we know that many minorities are being persecuted in Pakistan, but right at the forefront of those minorities is Ahmadiyyas. And
Christians and atheists.
Yeah, as I said, yes. So this is really about Muslims and the people who, you know, people who practice Islam and what their interpretation is of Islam. And what I would say is, more than any other time, the interpretation when it comes to bigotry is devastating and damaging, and it's causing a lot of mayhem, particularly for young people who want to have a faith, who do identify with Islam. But when they see the way Islam is being taught or the way it's being practiced, and I have to make this point really clearly, the patriarchal damage, and all faiths are patriarchal, it's not just Islam, is causing damage and devastation. And I think Muslims need to be really aware of the consequences of this, and those, especially those who profess to be leaders, particularly imams, and 99% of them are men, and we need to ask why.
That's quite disingenuous, because in India, right, the Hindu nationalists are persecuting many minority religions. What interpretation of Islam are they following? Are they Salafis?
There's nothing disingenuous by pointing out that Islam is being used to spread bigotry and hate and intolerance.
No, these are nationalist issues in both Pakistan and India.
It's being used.
Nothing to do with Islam.
Islam is being used as a weapon everywhere, just as Christianity is. Look at the United States of America. Look at what's going on in relation to women's rights, which are being rolled back.
But no one else citing the interpretation of Islam to persecute minorities, because everyone knows that on the subject was tolerant to different religions. In fact, I know many situations where Pakistanis who live in Pakistan have Sikh neighbours, and they do kind of joint events, community events, and they live quite peacefully together, right? So I think the problem is you're generalising all Muslims in UK, and you're generalising Muslims in Pakistan.
I'm not generalising anything.
All right, wait a minute, everybody. That's what racists do. Listen, just for the purposes of the next 45, 50 minutes, let's have a little bit of unity. You grew up in an Ahmadiyya family.
Yes,
how were you viewed?
I think there was a lot of discrimination against Ahmadis, even in this country, I would say. I'm not a spokesperson for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, but I'm passionate about human rights. And I feel it's just dreadful. It's just dreadful what's happening in Pakistan, where you're getting people telling Ahmadi Muslims that they are not Muslim, and they have to walk around with no identity. And I think that's disgraceful.
You have to have it endorsed on the passport.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's absolutely disgraceful.
Anyone else want to comment on that particular issue in the audience? Want to put your hand up here? Sadia, an ex-Muslim.
So in Pakistan, going back to the Ahmadi issue, in Pakistan, it is written into their penal code that as an Ahmadi, if you call yourself a Muslim, you will be executed as a blasphemer. So you have to talk about Pakistan. It's not disingenuous. And when we're talking about the legal structures in Pakistan, we're talking about lawmakers, policymakers, those that enforce the law. We're not talking about every single Pakistani that isn't racist. But also, what does Islam say about apostates and kafirs and non-believers? They treat them like less than animals.